The council chamber was enormous. Crystal walls stretched up toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, arranged in a perfect circle around the central platform. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert thousands of languages into something everyone could understand. Captain Daewon stood at the human podium, his uniform crisp and his face expressionless. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. 20 years fighting pirates on the Outer Rim. 15 years before that protecting colony ships from raiders. His hair was gray now, and his eyes carried the weight of too many battles fought for people who barely remembered his name. Next to him sat Dr. Hana, the lead scientist for the human delegation. She was younger, but her face looked tired. She had spent the last decade maintaining the quantum communication network that held the entire galaxy together. The network that she had designed. The network that no other species in the council truly understood. On Daewon's other side was Jiho, the military coordinator. He was the youngest of the three, barely 30, but his mind was sharp as a blade. He coordinated the human defense fleets that patrolled 89% of council space. The fleets that kept everyone safe while they slept. Across from them on the elevated central platform sat Consul Thexian. His species looked like giant mantises, all sharp angles and clicking mandibles. He was the council leader, elected by the member species to guide galactic policy. He looked down at the humans with what might have been contempt. It was hard to tell with his kind. Ambassador Daewon, Thexian's voice came through the translators with a mechanical edge. You have requested this emergency session. The council is listening. Daewon tapped his datapad. Holographic screens materialized in front of every council member. Numbers began scrolling across them. Employment statistics, casualty reports, budget allocations, the raw data of 300 years of human membership in the Galactic Council. These numbers tell a story, Daewon began, his voice calm and measured. Humans make up 6% of council population. But we staff 89% of dangerous jobs. We maintain 67% of all infrastructure. We provide 78% of emergency medical response. We patrol the borders. We fix the stations. We respond when disasters strike. Ambassador Vryn, a reptilian diplomat from the scale-born species, leaned forward with interest. She had always treated humans with respect, which made her unusual in this chamber. Daewon continued. In return, humanity receives 12% of council funding. Our colonies are denied expansion permits while other species receive automatic approval. Our representatives are excluded from security briefings about threats in sectors we protect. Our scientific discoveries are credited to council research teams while our names are removed from the publications. This is inflammatory rhetoric. Overseer Quilnox bubbled from his tank. He was a blob-like creature, translucent and constantly shifting. The council operates on merit-based systems. If humans occupy certain roles, it is because you are suited for them. Hana's jaw tightened. Daewon put a gentle hand on her arm. Suited for them? Daewon repeated softly. You mean we're suited for dying in jobs no one else wants? We're suited for maintaining equipment in radioactive zones. We're suited for fighting pirates while your species conduct trade in the safety we provide. Thexian's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of irritation. The council has given humanity a place among the stars. Before we found you, you were confined to one system. We brought you into galactic civilization. Perhaps some gratitude is warranted. The chamber fell silent. Even the translation devices seemed to pause. Daewon looked at Thexian for a long moment. Then he looked at Hana. Then at Jiho. Some unspoken communication passed between them. For 300 years, Daewon said quietly, we have been grateful. We have worked harder than anyone. We have bled more than anyone. We have died more than anyone. We built your stations. We programmed your networks. We fought your wars. And we did it believing that we were partners, that we were valued, that we were equals. He pulled up another screen. This one showed footage. A human engineer named Taman, working alone on an air recycling unit in a Thexian colony. The timestamp showed he had fixed the same unit 47 times in 6 months. In the footage, a Thexian administrator walked past him without a word. Not a greeting. Not a thank you, nothing. This was Taman, Daewon said. He died 3 weeks ago when a reactor core breached on Station Kelvar 9. He was trying to prevent a meltdown that would have killed 16,000 people. He succeeded. The station administrator's report listed the incident as resolved through automated safety systems. Taman's name appeared nowhere in the official record. More images flashed across the screens. Humans working in every corner of the galaxy, repairing, building, fighting, healing, dying, always in the background, always unnamed, always unappreciated. Vryn stood from her seat. Consul Thexian, perhaps we should— Sit down, Ambassador, Thexian snapped. The human delegation requested this session to air grievances. Let them air them. Then we can return to important matters. Important matters. Daewon almost smiled at that. He wondered what Thexian thought was more important than the people who held his civilization together. We have submitted formal requests for equitable treatment, Daewon said, 47 times over the past 50 years. All denied or ignored. We have asked for fair budget allocation. Denied. We have asked for representation in security councils. Denied. We have asked for permission to expand our colonies to support our growing population. Denied. We have asked for credit on scientific discoveries we made. Denied. And yet you continue to serve, Thexian said, which suggests that perhaps your complaints are not as severe as you claim. The Council has no obligation to alter its structures to accommodate one species' desires. No obligation, Daewon repeated. He looked tired suddenly. Very tired. You're right about that. Thexian seemed satisfied. Then we can consider this matter closed. The Council has heard your concerns. We will take them under advisement as always. Now, if there is no other business— Actually, Daewon interrupted, there is one more thing. You said something earlier. You said that perhaps humanity would be better served by our absence if we find this arrangement unsuitable. I was speaking theoretically, Thexian said with an annoyed click. I understand, Daewon said. He gathered his datapad and turned to leave. Hana and Jiho stood as well. We accept. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Thexian leaned forward. Accept what? Daewon stopped at the entrance to the human delegations section. Your suggestion. You're right. The galaxy would be better served by our absence. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged amused glances. Humans were always dramatic. This was clearly a negotiating tactic. Daewon walked out. His delegation followed. Behind them, the council continued its session, barely missing a beat. Thexian was already moving on to budget discussions. In the human delegation ship, now departing from the council station, Hana activated her personal communicator. It was a small device, barely larger than her thumb, but it was connected to every human station, ship, and outpost across the galaxy, through the quantum network. The network she had built, she entered a code, 16 digits, a pattern she had memorized years ago but hoped never to use. Across the galaxy, on thousands of human vessels and habitats, a message appeared simultaneously. Just 3 words and a number. Protocol Exodus. 72 hours. Captain Yuna, commanding a rescue fleet in the Outer Rim, read the message and immediately began calculations. Engineer Minho, managing the massive orbital station above Kelvar Prime, started shutdown procedures. Tech specialist Hyon, working deep in the Council defense network, began quietly extracting every line of code humans had written over 3 centuries. The countdown had begun. In the council chamber, Thexian continued discussing budget allocations, completely unaware that the foundation of his civilization had just walked out the door. The first sign of change came at Station Kelvar Prime, the largest trading hub in the eastern sectors. Engineer Minho had worked there for 12 years. He knew every corridor, every power relay, every life support system. He had built half of them himself. When the Protocol Exodus message arrived, he didn't hesitate. He gathered his team of 40 human engineers and technicians. They met in the central operations room, where holographic displays showed the station's vital systems in glowing blue and green. Everyone knows what to do, Minho said quietly. We run the standard shutdown sequence. Everything by the book. No sabotage, no damage, just a clean power down and departure. His second in command, a woman named Borum, nodded. The transport ships arrive in 60 hours. We need to be ready. They worked through the night. One by one, automated systems were switched to manual control. Then manual control was simply switched off. The massive fusion reactors that powered the station were carefully reduced to minimal output. The docking systems that guided thousands of ships every day were shut down. The air recyclers, the water purifiers, the gravity generators, all reduced to emergency levels only. When Minho finally locked the main operations room and walked away, the station was still functioning. Barely. It had enough power for life support and basic operations. But everything else, all the sophisticated systems that made Kelvar Prime the busiest station in 40 sectors, was dark. The alien workers arrived the next morning to find the operations center sealed. The access codes didn't work. The backup systems didn't respond. Emergency messages to the human quarters went unanswered because those quarters were empty. A Thexian supervisor tried to force the door open. He triggered a security lockout instead. Now even the basic systems were inaccessible. Where are the humans? Someone asked. No one knew. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated. Commander Yuna's rescue fleet had been stationed in the Outer Rim for 8 years. They patrolled the dangerous border regions where pirates and raiders operated freely. 70 ships, all human-crewed, all standing between Council colonies and chaos. Yuna read the protocol exodus message while sitting on the bridge of her flagship. Around her, the crew worked quietly at their stations. They were tracking 3 pirate vessels near the mining colony of Sector 447. All ships, Yuna said into the fleet-wide channel. Break off engagement. Set course for Rally Point Theta. Maximum speed. Her tactical officer, a young man named Kwang, looked confused. Captain, the colony will have to manage without us, Yuna finished. She pulled up the message and showed him. His eyes widened. About time, he muttered. The fleet turned away from the border. Behind them, the pirate vessels noticed immediately. Their sensors showed the human ships departing. After a moment of confusion, the pirates moved toward the undefended colony. The colony administrator sent urgent messages to the council. We need protection. The human fleet just abandoned their posts. The council sent a reply 7 hours later. We're looking into the situation. Maintain defensive protocols. The colony had no defensive protocols. They had never needed them. The humans had always been there. In the council headquarters on Viridia Prime, messages were starting to pile up. Station commanders reporting human staff disappearing. Colony governors reporting human populations evacuating. Fleet coordinators reporting that human vessels were not responding to hails. Overseer Quilnox bubbled nervously as he reviewed the reports. This is clearly a labor action, a strike. Humans have used this tactic before. They'll come back once we negotiate. Consul Thexian wasn't so sure. Something about the way Day One had walked out bothered him. That calm certainty, that quiet finality. Try to contact the human ambassador, Thexian ordered. The communication officer tried, and tried again, and again. The quantum address isn't responding, Consul, she reported. It's like it doesn't exist anymore. Ambassador Vryn entered the chamber, moving quickly despite her species' normally slow gait. Consul, we have a serious situation. The human populations are evacuating. Not just individuals, everyone. Entire colonies are being abandoned. Abandoned? Thexian's mandibles clicked in disbelief. That's impossible. Where would they go? Vryn pulled up a star map. It showed human settlements across council space. As they watched, the markers began changing color. Green to yellow, yellow to red. Red meant abandoned. They're leaving everything they can't carry, Vryn said. The infrastructure remains, but without humans to operate it. She didn't need to finish. Everyone in the room understood. The station on Kelvar Prime wasn't unique. It was happening everywhere. Tech specialist Hyon sat in a small room deep within the Council Defense Network's central hub. His official title was Maintenance Technician, which was a joke. He had designed 40% of the network's security systems. He had written 60% of its operational code. He had fixed countless problems that the alien engineers couldn't even identify, let alone solve. Now he was carefully removing all of it. His fingers moved across holographic keyboards, dancing through layers of code. He wasn't deleting anything. That would be sabotage. He was simply extracting the human-written portions and replacing them with nothing. The base system would still function, barely, but all the sophisticated additions, all the improvements, all the clever solutions to complex problems, those were going with him. How long? His assistant Nari asked. She was monitoring the door. Another hour, Jan replied. The deep core systems are tricky. I need to make sure the extraction is clean. They're going to notice. Eventually, Hyun agreed. But by then we'll be long gone. He worked in silence, watching centuries of human innovation being carefully packed into encrypted data cores. When he finally stood up and deactivated his workstation, the Council Defense Network was still running. But it was fragile now, vulnerable, like a house of cards with half the cards removed. Civilian leader, Soman coordinated the evacuation from the human colony of New Busan. It was one of the largest human settlements in Council space, home to 3 million people. Evacuating that many individuals required precision and planning. Fortunately, humans were very good at both. Transport Wave 7 is loaded, her assistant reported. Departing in 10 minutes. Soman watched the massive colony ships lift off from the surface. They had been building these vessels in secret for decades. Large enough to carry entire populations, fast enough to outrun most pursuit, equipped with everything needed for long-term survival in deep space. What about the infrastructure? Someone asked. The factories? The farms? The power plants? Leave them, Somin said. We're taking only what we need to survive. They wanted the infrastructure so badly? They can have it. Let's see if they can run it without us. The last transport lifted off 3 days after the protocol exodus message. New Busan was empty. The lights still worked. The buildings still stood, but there was no one left to turn on the lights or enter the buildings. By the end of the 72-hour period, humanity had vanished from Council space. Not a single human remained. 300 years of integration, gone in 3 days. The Council called an emergency session. The chamber was in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. Translation devices struggled to keep up. Where did they go? Someone demanded. How did they organize this so quickly? Another asked. When are they coming back? A third voice added hopefully. Consul Thexian sat in his elevated position, trying to maintain order and failing. He finally managed to quiet the chamber enough to speak. We will send envoys to human space, he announced. This is clearly a misunderstanding. Once we explain that the Council is willing to discuss their concerns... Consul, the communication officer interrupted. I've been trying to send messages to human vessels and stations. None of them are going through. It's like they don't exist anymore in our network. Vryn stood up. Because they don't. Humans built the quantum communication network. If they've removed themselves from it, we have no way to contact them faster than light speed. We'd need to send physical ships which would take months to reach even the nearest former human colony. The reality was starting to sink in. The humans hadn't just left their jobs. They had left completely, and they had taken their technology, their knowledge, and their skills with them. In the Outer Rim, the first pirate raid on an undefended colony was already complete. 17,000 dead. The pirates had been shocked by how easy it was. On Station Kelvar Prime, the life support systems began fluctuating. Without human maintenance, small problems were becoming big ones. Across Council space, the cracks were starting to show. And somewhere beyond the edges of known space, thousands of human ships traveled in perfect formation, heading toward coordinates that only they knew, carrying a civilization that had finally decided it deserved better. 3 weeks had passed since the humans left. The galaxy was starting to understand what it had lost. Consul Thexian stood in the Council Emergency Operations Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing disaster reports from every sector. His mandibles trembled slightly as he read through them. He had not slept properly in days. His species didn't really need sleep the way humans did, but even they required rest. There had been no time for rest. Status report, he said, his voice lacking its usual authority. Administrator Quilnox bubbled forward, his gelatinous form more agitated than usual. Consul, we have critical failures in 47 sectors. Life support systems are failing on 16 major stations. Trade routes are experiencing complete breakdown. Pirate activity has increased by 400%. Medical facilities are reporting they cannot operate human-designed equipment, and the quantum communication network is degrading faster than our technicians can repair it. Surely we have engineers who can... We have engineers, Quilnox interrupted, something he would never have dared to do before. But they don't understand the human systems. The humans built everything on principles we never fully grasped. They made it look easy, so we assumed it was easy. It wasn't. Ambassador Vryn entered the room moving quickly despite her usual slow pace. Her scales looked dull, a sign of extreme stress in her species. Consul, we have a situation on Peripheral Station 7. Life support is failing. 40,000 inhabitants. Thexian felt something cold settle in his chest. Send rescue ships. The nearest rescue vessels are 18 hours away. The station has 6 hours of air remaining. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Do what you can, Thexian said quietly. Vryn left. Thexian knew she would try. He also knew she would fail. 40,000 people were going to die because a life support system had broken down, and no one knew how to fix it. 3 weeks ago, there would have been humans on that station, engineers who could fix anything, who seemed to understand technology on an instinctive level. They would have had the system running again in hours, but there were no humans anymore. Engineer Guildmaster Kelrix was considered one of the finest technical minds in the galaxy. His insectoid species had built impressive technology for thousands of years. He stood now in front of a human-designed fusion reactor, surrounded by his best engineers, and felt utterly helpless. The reactor is stable, one of his assistants said, but the power output is dropping. We need to restart the secondary core. Kelrix studied the control panel. It was labeled in the human language, which his translator could read, but the labels didn't make sense. Neutrino dampener? Quantum flux regulator? These weren't standard reactor components. Or if they were, humans had named them differently from everyone else. Try the sequence the manual suggests, Kelrix ordered. His assistant carefully entered the commands. The reactor hummed. Then it shrieked. Alarms blared across the facility. Everyone ran. The explosion was visible from orbit. The fusion reactor had been powering the industrial complex of Kelvar Prime's manufacturing district. 70,000 workers had evacuated in time, but the complex itself was gone. Centuries of infrastructure destroyed in seconds. Kelrix survived. He sat in the debris field afterward, his multiple eyes staring at nothing. We followed the manual exactly, he whispered. Exactly. Perhaps, one of his assistants suggested carefully. There were steps the humans did automatically, things they knew but never wrote down because they seemed obvious. Kelrix realized the truth then. Humans hadn't deliberately hidden information. They had simply operated on a level of technical intuition that other species couldn't match. They saw patterns in systems that others couldn't see. They understood connections that weren't obvious. And now that gift was gone, leaving everyone else fumbling in the dark. Medical Director Solvax floated in his tank aboard the hospital ship Mercy's Dawn. His species was aquatic, and he was considered one of the finest doctors in Council space. Right now he felt useless. Before him a human-designed medical scanner sat inactive. It was an incredible piece of technology. It could diagnose thousands of conditions in seconds, spot diseases before symptoms appeared, and recommend treatment protocols with 98% accuracy. Every major hospital in Council space had one. None of them worked anymore. The system requires calibration, Solvax's assistant explained. The human medical staff performed calibration weekly. But the process isn't in any manual we can find. There must be documentation, Solvax insisted. There is, but it assumes knowledge we don't have. It's like, the assistant struggled for words. It's like the manual was written for people who already understood the principles. It doesn't explain the basics because humans thought the basics were obvious. Solvax looked at the dozens of patients waiting for diagnosis. Some were dying from conditions the scanner could identify in seconds. But without the scanner, diagnosis would take days or weeks. Many wouldn't have that long. Do what you can with conventional methods, Solvax said heavily, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that we find a solution soon. In the council chamber, representatives were shouting again. Order had broken down completely. Thexian could barely keep control. My colony is starving, one representative yelled. The agricultural distribution system doesn't work without human logistics coordinators. My station is dying, another screamed. The air recyclers are failing. Pirates destroyed 3 of our mining operations, a third added. Where is the protection you promised? Thexian wanted to tell them that the protection had always come from humans, that the agricultural distribution had been managed by humans, that the air recyclers had been maintained by humans. Everything had been held together by humans, and they had all been too blind or too arrogant to see it. Instead, he said, we are working on solutions. We are training new engineers, new medical staff, new defense coordinators, Training takes years, someone shouted. We don't have years. We have days, maybe weeks. Ambassador Vryn stood up, demanding silence. When the chamber finally quieted, she pulled up a holographic display. It showed financial records, hundreds of years of them. I've been investigating our budget allocations, she said quietly. The humans contributed 64% of our operational funding. Through taxes, through technology licensing, through service contracts. They received back 8% in council funding. The remaining 56% subsidized everyone else. Silence. They weren't just our workers, Vryn continued. They were our benefactors. We took their money, their technology, their lives, and we gave them nothing but contempt in return. Why didn't we know this? Someone asked. Because no one looked, Vryn said simply. The numbers were always available. But we never bothered to check. We assumed humans were getting a fair deal because they stayed. We thought their presence meant they were satisfied. She pulled up another image. It was a message buoy, found drifting in space near a former human colony. The message was simple. For 300 years, we kept your lights on. We fixed your machines. We fought your wars. We healed your sick. We asked only to be valued as equals. You couldn't even manage that. We're done being the galaxy's janitors. Good luck. The chamber was absolutely silent. Thexian felt something he hadn't felt in his long life. Shame, deep burning shame, and underneath that fear, because the galaxy was falling apart and he had no idea how to stop it. Draft a formal apology, he said quietly. Send it on all channels. Offer them whatever they want. Full council membership, equal representation, increased budget allocation, technology sharing rights, anything, everything. Vryn nodded and left to compose the message. It would be sent on every frequency, through every communication channel the council had. It would be broadcast toward every star system where humans might have gone, and it would receive no response, because humanity had not just left council space. They had left behind a quantum communication address that no longer existed. They had physically cut themselves off from the network they had built. Messages sent to human frequencies simply vanished into the void, reaching no one. Vryn discovered this 3 hours later when every message bounced back as undeliverable. They're completely gone, she reported to Thexian. We can't reach them. We don't know where they went. And even if we did, it would take months to send ships there. Keep trying, Thexian ordered, but his voice was hollow. He looked at the disaster reports again. Station 7 had lost life support. All 40,000 inhabitants were dead. The Kelvar prime reactor explosion had destroyed critical manufacturing infrastructure. 3 more colonies had been raided by pirates. The medical crisis was getting worse. The economic collapse was accelerating, and it had only been 3 weeks. Thexian thought about Daewon's calm face as he walked out. That quiet certainty. Had the human known this would happen? Had humanity planned for this collapse? No, Thexian realized. They hadn't planned for it. They had simply lived it. Every day they had seen how dependent the galaxy was on them. They had known exactly what would happen if they left, and they had left anyway. Somewhere out in the darkness of space, beyond the reach of council sensors, humanity was building something new. Something where they would be valued, where their work would be appreciated. 6 months had passed since Protocol Exodus. Ambassador Vryn stood on the bridge of a small scout ship, staring at the empty colony below. This was the 14th abandoned human settlement she had visited. Like all the others, it was hauntingly pristine. The buildings stood intact. The power systems still hummed at minimal levels. The streets were clean, but there were no people. No personal belongings, no signs of hurried departure. Just empty structures that humans had built and then methodically abandoned. It's like they were never here, her pilot said quietly. No, Vryn corrected. It's like they decided we didn't deserve to have them here. She was leading what the council now called the Reconciliation Committee, though everyone knew it was really a search party. Find the humans, bring them back, save what was left of the galaxy. The galaxy was dying. That was the truth no one wanted to say aloud, but everyone knew. Council territory had shrunk by 40%. 6 member species had formally withdrawn, deciding they had better chances on their own. Pirate warlords controlled entire sectors now. The economy had collapsed so completely that some worlds had reverted to barter systems. And the death toll. Vryn didn't like to think about the death toll. Consul Thexian had been removed from power 3 months ago. He sat now in a small dwelling on his homeworld, disgraced and alone. Sometimes Vryn wondered if he understood yet. If he grasped that his arrogance had destroyed civilization as they knew it. She stepped off the ship onto the surface of what had been called New Busan. 3 million humans had lived here once. The population center was designed with the efficient beauty that characterized human architecture. Everything had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. She walked through empty streets until she reached what appeared to be a research facility. The door was unlocked. Inside, she found laboratories filled with equipment she didn't recognize. Computers that still worked, displaying data she couldn't understand. In one office, she found personal logs. A young man named Taman had worked here. She remembered that name. Daewon had mentioned him in his final address to the council. The engineer who had died preventing a reactor meltdown, whose name had been left out of official reports. Vryn accessed his logs. They were personal reflections never meant for official records. Fixed the Thexian air recycler again today, one entry read. 47th time this year. I've told the administrator repeatedly that they need to replace the primary filter, but he just tells me to keep fixing it. I don't think he understands that I'm not magic. I'm just willing to do the work he won't do. Another entry dated 3 years earlier. Sometimes I wonder what we're doing here. We work ourselves to exhaustion, and for what? The Thexians don't thank us. The council doesn't acknowledge us. We're just useful, like tools. You don't thank a hammer for hitting a nail. A later entry. Dr. Hana gave a presentation today about quantum network architecture. It was brilliant, revolutionary. The council science committee barely paid attention. One of them actually fell asleep. She noticed. I could see it hurt her. She spent 10 years developing that technology, and they couldn't even stay awake for 30 minutes. The final entry was dated 2 weeks before Protocol Exodus. Saw the budget reports today. We contribute 64% of council funding. Receive 8% back. I did the math 3 times because I couldn't believe it. We're not partners. We're not even valued members. We're being exploited. And we're letting it happen. Why are we letting it happen? Vryn closed the log file, feeling something heavy settle in her chest. Guilt, she realized. She had been part of the system that treated humans this way. She had voted on council measures. She had sat in that chamber while Thexian dismissed Daewon's concerns. She left the facility and continued exploring. In a residential area, she found a school. Children's drawings still hung on the walls. Pictures of stars and planets and ships. In one picture, a child had drawn humans and aliens holding hands beneath a bright sun. The caption read, "Friends in space." That child was gone now. All the children were gone. An entire generation of humans had looked at the galaxy and decided it wasn't worth staying for. Vryn's communicator buzzed. "Ambassador, we've found something." Coordinates uploading now. She returned to her ship and jumped to the new location. It was an abandoned research station on the edge of former human territory. Her team had detected unusual energy signatures. Inside, they found data archives, hundreds of years of human research. Technologies that were 10 to 15 years ahead of anything the council had. Breakthrough discoveries in medicine, physics, engineering, agriculture, all of it left behind, locked in archives that required human-level understanding to fully utilize. Why would they leave this? One of her team members asked. Vryn understood. Because it wouldn't matter. Even if we had access to their research, we couldn't replicate it. Look at these notes. They assume knowledge we don't have. They're written by humans for humans. She pulled up a file at random. It was a medical treatment protocol for cellular regeneration. The introduction alone contained references to 15 different principles that Vryn didn't recognize. The mathematics involved required computational methods that hadn't been taught in council universities. They weren't hiding their knowledge, Vryn realized. They were just beyond us, and we were too arrogant to admit it. One of her team made another discovery. In a secure section of the archives, they found construction records, blueprints for massive vessels, generation ships capable of supporting entire populations for centuries if needed. They built these? Someone asked in amazement. They built them in secret, Vryn corrected, while working their council jobs, while maintaining our infrastructure, while fighting our wars. In their spare time, they built an entire Exodus fleet. The scale of it was staggering. Hundreds of massive vessels, each one a marvel of engineering. They had been planning this for decades, maybe longer, all while the Council assumed humans were content with their role. More discoveries followed over the next weeks. Evidence of human settlements beyond the galactic rim. Long-range sensor stations positioned at the edge of known space, watching the Council's collapse from a distance. Encrypted communication nodes that humanity was using for their own network, completely separate from Council systems. And then finally, a breakthrough. One of the monitoring stations was still active, not abandoned like the others occupied. Bryn made a decision. She went alone. The station was small, more of an outpost than a real facility. It orbited a brown dwarf star on the very edge of Council space. As her ship approached, she received a hail. "This is Captain Jiwan of the Human Monitoring Network. State your business, Ambassador Vryn." They knew her name. They had been watching. "I need to speak with you," Vryn replied. Face to face, a long pause. Then, "You may dock at Port 3, come alone." The station's interior was clean and efficient like everything humans built. Captain Jiwan met her at the airlock. She was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her, Vryn could see a small crew working at various stations. "You've come a long way," Jiwan said. Her tone was professional but cold. "The galaxy is dying," Vryn said simply. "You know this. You're watching it happen." "We are," Jiwan confirmed. "That's our job. Monitor Council space. Make sure your wars don't spill into our territory." "Your territory?" "Humanity has claimed space beyond the rim. It's ours now. We're building something there. Something better." Vryn gestured to the monitoring station around them. "You're still here. Still watching. That means you still care." "We're watching to protect ourselves," Jiwan corrected. "Not to help you. People are dying." "People have always been dying," Jiwan said, her voice hardening. "Humans died in your wars. Humans died maintaining your stations. Humans died saving your colonies. Where was your concern then?" The words hit like physical blows. Vryn had no defense against them. "Captain, I know we failed you. I know humanity suffered injustices that can never be fully repaired. But there are billions of innocent people suffering now. People who never voted on Council policy. People who never had a voice in how humans were treated. And there were humans who never wanted the jobs they were forced into," Jiwan countered. "Humans who died in wars they didn't start. Humans who worked themselves to death and received no recognition. Where was your advocacy for them?" They stood in silence. Around them, the monitoring station hummed quietly. Finally, Jiwan spoke again. "Why are you here, Ambassador, really?" "To ask for help. We don't owe you help." "I know." Another long silence. "Wait here," Jiwan said finally. She returned an hour later. "I've contacted leadership. They want to speak with you. It will be by hologram only. They won't reveal their location." Vryn agreed immediately. The hologram materialized. Daewon appeared, looking older but somehow more at peace. Next to him stood Dr. Hana, and several other humans Vryn didn't recognize. "Ambassador Vryn," Daewon said, his voice carrying none of the warmth it once had. "Speak." Vryn looked at Daewon's holographic form and felt the weight of 6 months of failure pressed down on her. She had searched abandoned colonies. She had watched civilizations crumble. She had seen death on a scale that would haunt her forever. And now finally she faced the one person who might be able to stop it. "The Council wishes to apologize," Vryn began. Daewon's expression didn't change. "We received your formal apology 4 months ago. 17 of them, actually. Each one promising more than the last. Full Council membership, equal representation, technology sharing, increased budgets. Very generous offers. Then why didn't you respond?" "Because words are cheap, Ambassador. For 300 years we received words. Promises of equality that never materialized. Assurances of fair treatment that meant nothing. We're done accepting words." Dr. Hana stepped forward in the hologram. "You want to know why we left? It wasn't any single incident. It was the accumulation of 3 centuries of being treated as tools instead of people. Every time someone walked past our engineers without acknowledgement. Every time our scientists were excluded from credit. Every time our soldiers died and weren't even named in the reports. It added up." "I understand," Vryn said quietly. "I've seen the records. I've read the personal logs. I know what we did to you. Do you?" A new voice joined the hologram. A young girl, maybe 12 years old. "I'm Sora. I was born on New Busan. My parents were medical technicians. They worked 20-hour shifts during the plague outbreak on Station Kelvar 9. They saved 16,000 lives. The council gave the credit to the Thexian medical director. My parents came home exhausted and broken, and no one even knew what they'd done. Sora looked directly at Vryn. That's why we left, because I watched my parents give everything and get nothing back. Not even a thank you. Vryn felt something crack inside her chest. What would it take? She asked quietly. What would it take for humanity to help? Help? Jiwan's voice came from behind Vryn in the physical station. You want us to come back? To fix your problems? To maintain your infrastructure again? No, Vryn said, turning to face the captain before looking back at the hologram. I'm not asking you to rejoin the council. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking if there's any way to stop the dying. The humanitarian crisis is beyond anything we can manage. Billions are at risk. Day-One looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke to someone off-screen. Connect me to the assembly. The hologram expanded. Suddenly, Vryn was looking at what appeared to be a massive chamber filled with thousands of humans. They sat in rows, all watching her. This was humanity's leadership, she realized. Their new government in whatever place they had built beyond the rim. The ambassador has asked for humanitarian assistance, Day-One announced to the assembly. The council is experiencing cascading failures. Medical crisis, infrastructure collapse, mass casualties. They want our help. A rumble of voices swept through the assembly. Vryn heard anger in those voices, pain, bitterness. Dr. Hana spoke next. I propose we refuse. We owe them nothing. They treated us as servants for 300 years. Let them learn to survive on their own. Many voices agreed. Vryn's heart sank. Then a man stood up. He was older, gray-haired, with the weathered look of someone who had worked with his hands his entire life. I'm Gyong. I was a station engineer for 40 years. I fixed their machines. I maintained their systems. And I hated every minute of being taken for granted, he paused. But I also remember why I did the work. It wasn't for the council. It wasn't for recognition. It was because people needed life support to breathe. They needed water purifiers to drink. They needed medical equipment to survive. If I had stopped working out of spite, innocent people would have died. Another person stood, a woman who looked to be in her 60s. I'm Mireille, I was a doctor. I treated everyone who came to my clinic. Council members, their families, people who had voted against every single proposal for human equality. And I treated them anyway because they were sick and I could help. More people stood. One by one, humans across the assembly rose to speak. I'm Dongwu. If we abandon people out of revenge, we become what they were. We become the ones who value pride over life. I'm Yunji. My daughter is watching this debate. What lesson am I teaching her? That we help only when it benefits us? That we let people suffer because we're angry? I'm Kiwu. I was a rescue pilot. I saved people who would never know my name. I did it because it was right, not because anyone appreciated it. Young Sora stood up in the hologram. Her voice was clear and strong. If we become like they were, selfish and cruel, then we lose what makes us human. We lose what makes us better. The assembly fell quiet. Day-One looked across the thousands of faces. Vryn could see the internal struggle playing out. Humanity had every right to refuse, every reason to let the council face the consequences of its own actions. But that wasn't who they were. Day-One turned back to Vryn. The assembly will vote. This is a democracy now. Everyone has a voice, he paused. While they decide, let me make something very clear. If humanity chooses to offer assistance, it will be on our terms, not as council members, not as servants, as an independent civilization helping another in crisis. I understand, Vryn said. Do you? Because here are the terms. Humanity will provide humanitarian aid, medical supplies, emergency technical support, rescue operations where lives are at immediate risk. But we will not rejoin the council. We will not maintain your infrastructure long-term. We will not defend your territory. We will not fight your wars. We will help you survive this crisis, and then we will leave you to build your own solutions. Hana added, and the council will formally recognize human sovereignty. You will pay reparations for 300 years of exploitation. The amount will be calculated based on the economic value of human contributions minus what we received in return. It will be substantial. Furthermore, another human spoke up, a man introduced as Counselor Taijin. Any species wishing to leave Council space and join humanity's new civilization may apply. We will evaluate applications based on merit, character, and compatibility with our values. We will accept refugees. We will offer sanctuary to those fleeing the chaos, but we will be selective. Vryn nodded slowly. These terms will be difficult for the Council to accept. Then let them refuse, Jiwan said coldly from behind her. And let them die with their pride intact. The voting took 3 hours. Vryn waited in silence, watching through the hologram as thousands of humans cast their votes. The debate was passionate, emotional. She heard 3 centuries of pain in their voices. But she also heard something else. Compassion, humanity. The very thing their name represented. Finally, Day 1 announced the results. The vote passes. 71% in favor. Humanity will provide humanitarian assistance under the terms outlined. Vryn felt relief wash over her. Thank you. Don't thank us, Day 1 said, his voice hard. We're not doing this for you. We're doing it because it's right. Because those people suffering didn't all vote to oppress us. Because children are dying who never had any voice in how we were treated. We're helping them, not the Council. I understand. Do you? Hana asked. Because you need to understand something else. Humanity has changed. We spent 300 years being taken for granted. Being used. Being exploited. We built something new out here. Something where every person is valued. Where work is appreciated. Where no one is treated as a tool. We will never give that up. We will never return to being what we were. Vryn met her gaze. Will you ever forgive us? Daewon was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps. In a few centuries. When you've learned to value others as equals, not assets. When you've built a civilization based on mutual respect instead of exploitation. When you've proven that you've changed. Maybe then. How will we prove it? Vryn asked. By doing what we did, Sora said. The young girl's voice was soft but clear. By working hard. By helping others. By building something good. By doing it all without recognition or reward. Just because it's right. When you can do that for 300 years, maybe you'll understand what you asked of us. The hologram flickered. The first humanitarian ships will arrive in Council space within 2 weeks, Daewon said. They will have medical supplies, emergency repair equipment, and technical advisors. They will help where help is needed most. But make no mistake, Ambassador. They come as foreign aid workers, not as Council members. They will wear human insignia. They will fly human flags. They will make it very clear that they are independent operators helping on their terms. The Council will have to accept that, Vryn said. The Council will accept it or people will die, Jiwan corrected. The choice is theirs. Vryn returned to Council space with the terms. The debate was fierce. Many Council members found the terms humiliating. The requirement to pay reparations. The acknowledgement of exploitation. The recognition that humans were now an independent power. Not Council subjects, but the alternative was watching billions die. The Council accepted. 2 weeks later, human ships began appearing in Council space. They arrived at disaster sites, at failing stations, at overwhelmed hospitals. They brought supplies. They brought expertise. They brought hope. But they also brought a message. Every ship flew the flag of the new human commonwealth.